Hey George, thank you for sharing your work. I'm really excited to talk about it. I think it's a really cool piece. I want to read from what you wrote when you sent in your piece so that we can be on the same page. It's a combo attack practice animation with the theme of a one-armed swordsman, which I think is really cool because the mechanics and the way the body moves without that extra balancing piece is totally different. And I think that you've done a really good job with it, by the way. You feel like there's many places that aren't good enough, but you're not sure how to address that. You think the overshoot isn't good, and you don't feel like you expressed his personality, which is supposed to be arrogance. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we can talk about with this. It's really cool. Awesome. This is really cool. Um, I have to admit that attack animations are not my forte, but I love this, and performance is something that I really like. So let's talk about how we can try and bring in a little bit more performance within these attack moves. I'm not gonna. I want to try to address things within the context of what you've already completed. So I'm not going to be suggesting different moves or different style of attacks or movements or something to suggest more arrogance. I want to take what you've already got and see if we can infuse a little bit more arrogance into it. So to start off with this pose, what I think really reads well is confidence. And part of that is looking out from under his eyebrows and his head tilted down. It's a nice pose that you have. The only thing that I might suggest for this is that his hand feels a little bit broken from his wrist. If you can reorient it so that his wrist is actually kind of in line with his palm a little bit more, which is challenging considering parenting constraints and setups and stuff. But usually we have this thing here that I could use. Just because the sword is, let's say, at this angle behind his head, does not mean that his palm has to be perfectly perpendicular to it. His palm could be more like this or like this. I'm trying to keep myself in frame while also there, like that. If that makes sense. So the palm is actually more in line with the forearm, even though the object is like this, so that these are not meeting at a perpendicular angle, because that is super uncomfortable. It's fine when it's here because it's more in line with the forearm, but when it's out here, it's really uncomfortable. That actually hurts. And so you would probably get it more like that. Anyway, small thing about this start pose. But to infuse more arrogance, usually arrogance can be communicated by someone feeling like they're better than you, and so they're holding their nose up and they're kind of looking down their nose at you. It's kind of cliche, but also cliche for a reason, is that it communicates that. It works, it's effective. And so instead of having him looking like this, I might suggest him looking like this. It might change how you have to put the sword. Maybe it has to move back a little bit on his shoulders or something because his head's going to be in the way. But that idea of kind of like holding his nose up high and looking down at you, keeping his lids kind of closed. So he's just kind of looking out of the sliver of the bottom of his eyes at you. Feels more arrogant and pompous and better than you sort of feeling. So that could be an interesting way to adjust this a little bit to help sell that idea if you want to push towards arrogance rather than confidence, because it's a fine line. But if that's your goal, I'm going to give you some tools with which to do that. Another thing is kind of staring you down as he's doing the attack. That could communicate this feeling of supremacy, this feeling that I feel like I'm better than you as I do this. And he's disconnecting his head a lot. He's just wildly swinging with his head going different ways. And so if you were to take a pass at kind of locking this in, so even right here, if as he turns his body, instead of moving his head with it, he turns his body, but his head stays focused on the camera, and his point of attack. Now here, you're not going to be able to see the face. That's fine. It gets to a certain point where he does turn away, but at least it holds for a little bit longer. And then like right here, can definitely have him kind of like looking up at us, right? Connecting with us. That's supposed to be eyes and a nose, and there's a little. And then here as well, It's fine to be using the head into like throwing the momentum of the body, but you can also connect it back and have it kind of trying to stay on target a little bit instead of doing that. And just for a few moments, basically wherever you can milk it a little bit more. Still do the things you're doing, but if there's opportunity to have him connected with the camera or the point of attack, I would try to do that. So maybe right here, he could still be looking at us. And here, possibly, by this point, no. And here, no. Here, yes. So the character could be looking at us again here and kind of stay target locked on us, even through this. Instead of throwing the head down while slamming the sword down, could do that with the character's body and shoulder, even with the neck. But if the head kind of stays locked on us while doing that, it's kind of like an intimidation factor. I'm going to slam the ground, I'm going to break stuff while staring at you while I do it. And that can help communicate some of that. We also get disconnected from the character quite a bit here, so it might help to bring us back into feeling something from the character here because we're so disconnected for so long. Even here, could still be kind of glaring at us. And this is the case where you'd use that kind of like glaring out from under the eyebrows because the nose is tilted downwards instead of held up. That would be weird here. I wouldn't have the character crouched, but also trying to look down at us. This one's crouched and looking out from under the eyebrows. This is all really cool. You have some really fun moves in here. Here as well, right here. Lock on target with the head and the eyes. And don't lose it here. Stay locked on. And here. Now it's working. It's better. So I think and here you could probably stay locked on target too. The longer you can connect the head, I think, the more successful it will be. And watch out for this pinching. I'm not sure how to solve that. Something in the rig, the way that it could be how much you're using that arm and it has flipped 360 degrees around and kind of done like a candy wrapper twisting on the upper arm there. Here as well could be connected more, eyes locked on. I think basically take that note and push it throughout, and I think you'll have a lot more arrogance. You'll have a lot more of that staring down the enemy, doing the intimidation factor. I think it's going to work well. It's super cool. This is a lot of attacks. There's so much happening in this piece, and it's really fun. And so then for this ending, this all works. The only suggestion I have for like actually changing up timing of things, changing around the move a little bit, is maybe I would, just to try to condense, I would have him slam the ground with the sword at the same time he looks over at the audience, or at the, I guess his target. It's kind of weird because we switched views now, so we're no longer his target. I'm going to turn off my phone so that it stops beeping at me. All right, and so that's really the only moment that I might try condensing some of the moves so that it's not slam, wait, then turn, but more of like slam and turn at the same time. That could be cool. All right. Now, you said that you also were worried about the overlap. I think in general, you're doing a really good job with that. One part that kind of calls attention to itself for me, the biggest one, is this landing right here. It feels a little too, what's the right word? I guess kind of like animate-y. I don't have a better word for it, so let me describe what that means to me. Is that it feels like there's a lot of just straight overlap put into it without a lot of consideration for how the body mechanics would work. And so when I say animate-y, it means that if it were my piece, I would feel like I didn't use much reference for that part, and I just kind of went on animator brain and was like, oh, okay, so we're going to put in drag, and we're going to put in overlap, and we're going to put in drag, and we're going to put in overlap, and so then you end up with it feeling like he's landing like that, instead of maybe shooting reference a little bit more and finding out what would happen to the body in a landing like that. doesn't have to be landing on a sword, but take reference of yourself jumping from a couch onto the ground and find out what happens if you try to kind of stabilize yourself in this pose of keeping yourself hunched over but looking at a target, and find out what the mechanics are. Because right now it feels like it's just drag, overlap, drag, overlap, drag, overlap up the spine. And so then you get that sort of feeling. I'm really exaggerating, but that's the feeling that I have. A little bit of it is hidden by the camera move. So that's actually working to hide some of that feeling for you. So that's the camera is helping to make it feel more successful than I feel like it might look if we didn't have the camera move. So I'd want you to challenge you to do that part over, or adjust it. You don't have to like scrap it. Adjust that part with more reference involved and understanding the mechanics of how the pieces settle and how they will come to rest at different times, and look at it without the camera move, just for yourself, to see if it's feeling better. That's the part that calls out to me the most in terms of the overlap. There's other little things that we can talk about here and there. In, where is it? I think I already missed it. This one. It's not necessarily overlap. It's the settle of how all the body pieces come to rest after this big thing slams into the ground. Especially this foot coming in and it kind of hits him in the face. But it comes in real fast and just stops right there, real hard. The way that the body overlaps right here or doesn't, and what happens to like the whole torso. This whole piece feels pretty stiff. I don't think you need to add too much to it. I wouldn't go down to just like add overlap, add drag and overlap. I'd want to know what really happens to the body there. So my guess is, for one, this is extending up. Like the root is extending up, the leg is straightening, and all of this momentum is going up. It's probably going to continue going that way. The root is going to keep going up and that way, and then come back down this way a little bit. So you're going to get an arc out of it where it goes up, forward, and over. And what might end up happening is that then the character is going to be a little bit more hunched up. Let's see, head, chest, it's kind of covered by the head, and then the root is that the character is going to compress a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of that going on from here to here, and then you'll get straight into what you have because you're then going down. Basically, I'm trying to say it's not far off, but a little bit more mechanics of what that body weight does because of that momentum that it has will help you out. And then in terms of the foot, I might suggest maybe having it come up this way instead of right now it swoops under here. So maybe it needs to come up like that so that the foot can follow a path that's like that. I guess maybe it would be more like that. So it would level out and then come down. But at the moment, what it does is that. And so it just swoops in. But keep in mind that it has all this momentum of going up. So it's probably going to go up and arc over and then come down in like that. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Work on that momentum of those different parts. The root or the cog or the hips, whatever you want to call it, moving up and through that momentum, the foot doing the same, and then it has to come in forward real fast to support the body weight from falling over forward, which you're doing. Just the path of how it gets there could be a little bit more polished up. All right, and then there's a couple other polishy things that we can talk about that I'll go over quickly. One is watch the path of the sword. It's real hard to do, but the sword is going to be so super heavy, so you'll want it to always have a really clean arc. See how that part feels. That's working pretty well. There's some other parts that maybe not as clean as this is here. Then there's okay. So here I would twist the sword a little bit so it's fatter, because it's becoming kind of paper thin. and so it's not intimidating. Here, we can't even see it at all. I would change your arc of this so that maybe we can see it a little bit. And then this one, I would also twist it. Twist it a little bit so that it becomes fatter in the screen space. And then it gets to here. That'll work. Okay. Watch out for... Where was it? Also here. Getting kind of paper thin. You could twist it a little bit again so that we can see it a little bit thicker, fatter. Where was it? I know I saw some parts that... I love the little detail of how it smacks it on the ground over here, and you have a little tiny little breakup of stuff from the ground. That's really cool. Nice attention to detail. Here you could fatten it up a little bit more to the frame. Oh, right there. Okay. So, like, the middle of the end. The middle of the end. The middle of the tip of the sword. Kind of does that. So watch out for that frame there. That frame you probably want to move more to like here. Yes. So that way it's going like that. Actually, I didn't go far enough. Then it pops back out again. So it's doing that. So watch that arc. See if you can simplify and trace it. Here as well, there's a little bit of a wonkiness. So it's coming in this way and then pops up to here. Right there. So watch out for that. And just watch out for little spacing things like that throughout. I think that will help you a lot, and it will sell the weight of it a little bit more. Same thing for, you can track the spacing of the head as well. And those things will help feel the weight of it. And then you've got the stuff for the overlap that I gave you. Watching for this moment here, it's more of a settle sort of thing. And then this landing here, also a settle sort of thing. This final spin works really well. Spin and slide. I think that's super cool. Watch out here spacing wise for this foot. Like watching this line, it jumps a lot right there. It's kind of frozen, and then boom. And then through all of this, it feels fairly even. So watch out for your even spacing. See if you can start off a little bit slower, favor the stuck pose a little bit more, and then move faster to get to your end pose. And I think that those things will help sell all that. And then in terms of the arrogance, just to summarize, keep him like target locked on us as long as possible. And I think that that will really help. And also in the start pose, maybe you could have him a bit more arrogant with his chin up, looking down his nose at you instead of down through here, because you'll have a lot of this sort of thing throughout the attacks as he's locked on us. I hope those things help. Thank you for sharing your work, George, and I hope to see what you do next. Thanks. Bye-bye.